My girlfriend took a break to find herself, slept with other men, and came back begging. But I said no. I never expected that one sentence would shatter 5 years of trust, leaving me standing alone in my living room, while everything I thought we shared vanished with her closing door. I still remember how peaceful our life felt before that fateful Wednesday. I'm Noah, an IT consultant with a stable career, a house I own outright, and a near-religious routine that starts every morning at 6 a.m. with a half-hour workout at my neighborhood gym. After that, I'd shower, sip my coffee, and scroll through tech updates before diving into client projects. Evenings were sacred leftovers from our favorite Thai place. Elena curled up beside me as we talked about everything from family gossip to weekend plans. That steady rhythm became the soundtrack of our 5-year relationship, built on trust and mutual respect, or so I thought. In those quiet moments, I felt invincible, two people aligned in goals and affection, navigating life together like a well-oiled machine. But as any storm chaser knows, the stillness can be deceiving. I began noticing tiny fissures. Her glance drifting to her phone screen longer than usual, a pause before answering my questions, that familiar crease of distraction between her eyebrows. At first I brushed them off as work stress or fatigue. After all, we'd weathered disagreements over trivial things, whose turn to take out the trash or what flavor of ice cream to get. Those were normal couple squabbles that fizzled out with an apology and a hug. What I didn't see was the subtle shift in her tone when she said, "I just feel stuck," as if she were holding back something bigger. That moment, small as it was, became the first raindrop warning me of an approaching storm. Still, I clung to our foundation, convinced a good conversation would reset everything. I never imagined that the calm I loved so much was actually the lull before the biggest upheaval of my life, and I certainly didn't expect that the person I trusted most would deliver the thunderbolt that would change everything. That Wednesday night felt like any other, just me and Elena sharing the last bites of our spicy pad thai, the soft hum of our favorite playlist filling the kitchen. But then she set her fork down mid-bite, her eyes distant, and said, "Noah, I think we need a break." My heart skipped, but my voice stayed calm. In that moment, I saw her vulnerability, the fear behind her words, the longing for something she couldn't name. From her side, it was about finding herself, unearthing the parts of her identity she feared she'd lost, somewhere between my project deadlines and my carefully maintained routines. She spoke of wanderlust in her soul, of curiosities she'd buried, of questions she couldn't ask while we were us. I heard the tremor in her voice and knew she was sincere, but sincerity doesn't always equal right. I paused, measured my next words deliberately, and replied, "If you need space, you'll have it, but not under this roof." That sentence sounded colder in the air than I intended, yet it drew a clear boundary. Her journey began beyond that front door. She blinked, shock pooling in her eyes, a mixture of relief that I didn't fight and disbelief that I wouldn't. She asked, "You're really okay with this?" I nodded because I had to be. I knew that in partnerships built on respect, unilateral pauses weren't invitations to linger, they were declarations of intent. My opinion settled in my chest like a rock. If someone isn't sure about you, you shouldn't be sure about holding on. As I helped her gather a handful of clothes into a suitcase, I felt a strange blend of sorrow and clarity. She called her sister for a ride, and we stood at the threshold, two people connected by memories, yet separated by unmet needs. Her final question trembled on her lips. "Will you miss me?" I held the door, looked her in the eye, and said nothing. I let silence be my answer, clear, unambiguous, and final. Beneath that calm exterior, I felt a shift, an unexpected surge of empowerment that whispered, "You are worthy of someone who chooses you wholeheartedly." And just like that, with the click of that suitcase latch, our story took a turn I never saw coming. Life without Elena wasn't the dramatic upheaval I half expected. It was a quiet revelation. I woke the next morning to the familiar chime of my alarm at 6:00 a.m., rolled out of bed, and expected the hush of her breathing beside me. Instead, there was only the soft hum of the heater and my own thoughts. At the gym, the clank of weights and the steady beat of the treadmill became my meditation. Back home, I made coffee in my favorite mug, no shared sips, no teasing about the too strong brew, and settled into my home office to tackle client code. Every line compiled without error felt like a small victory in taking back my focus. When lunchtime rolled around, I eyed the half-finished pad thai box on the counter, our ritual dinner leftovers, and laughed at how small the portion seemed when eaten solo. I microwaved it, plated it neatly, and sat at the kitchen table, letting the silence sink in. In the afternoons, I wandered through our living room, fingers brushing the new throw pillows. She hated the blank wall where her artwork used to hang. Each change was deliberate. The couch fluffed the lighting, adjusted the furniture, rearranged to suit my tastes. It felt oddly thrilling to curate a space that reflected only me. At first I thought I might miss the creases of her favorite hoodie, left draped over the armchair, but when I boxed up her things, including that hoodie, I felt lighter, like I'd shed more than just fabric. My evenings regained purpose too. Instead of anxiously checking my phone for her texts, I dove into projects I'd sidelined, refinishing the bookshelf I'd bought 6 months ago, experimenting with new recipes that didn't involve coconut milk or fish sauce, catching up on novels I'd bookmarked. I discovered that I liked my own company, that my mind freed from emotional crosstalk thrived on clarity. Friends noticed the change. Alex called one night, "You sound different, better." And he was right. I felt sharper at work, calmer at home, more decisive in planning the weekends. Yet between those routines there were still moments of curiosity, flashes of wondering why she'd really left, whether I'd missed a clue. But those thoughts came and went, like clouds observed, acknowledged, then released. The quiet house taught me that stability isn't just about predictability. It's about choosing peace over chaos. And in that stillness, I realized something profound. The life I built wasn't dependent on someone else's commitment. It was mine to live fully. By the end of that first week, I wasn't just surviving alone. I was thriving, more confident in my worth than ever before. That week, the truth came in fragments, from my sister's worried call, from Alex's blunt drop-in, even from whispers over the backyard fence. It started with my sister Jen, who rang me late one evening. She left just like that. Her voice trembled between disbelief and anger. I told her the short version. Elena asked for a break. I drew the line. She packed up and left, and she immediately affirmed my choice. Don't let her walk all over you. In that moment, I realized how rare it is to have someone cheer on your self-respect. Then Alex showed up unannounced. He didn't say much at first, but when he did, it was sharp. "You dodged a bullet, man. If she can't commit now, she won't when it counts." His words stung, not because they weren't true, but because they confirmed a growing suspicion that what passed for self-discovery was really a search for greener pastures. Next came the neighborhood grapevine. Janice leaning over the fence as I mowed the lawn. I saw Elena out jogging with someone new. I pressed her for details, but she shrugged, just what people see. And Lauren's text that night painted a locker room scene. Elena laughing over drinks at the tavern, cozy with a stranger. Each report landed like a pebble in my mind, building ripples of clarity. I didn't seek these updates. They found me carried by friends who didn't know whether I wanted to hear them. Yet every snippet chipped away at any lingering doubts. As the stories piled up, late-night bar sightings, brunch dates with unfamiliar faces, I felt a strange mix of insult and relief. Insult because someone I loved so deeply was parading her new freedom. Relief because the evidence validated my decision to let go. My opinion on gossip shifted too. It's not malicious, it's information. It showed me who Elena had become in my absence, and I didn't like the person she revealed herself to be. By the end of the week, I wasn't just hearing rumors. I was surveying a mosaic of her choices. And in that mosaic, one image stood out: me, standing firm. Those outside voices taught me that sometimes you need a chorus of perspectives to tune into your own truth. And in that chorus, I found my voice again, clear, unwavering, and free. By the time I scrolled through Elena's social media, the reality settled in like a cold gust. I'm not one for stalking, but Instagram's algorithm had other ideas. Her new posts popped up, as if curated for my eyes. There she was, in someone else's photo, laughing across the table at that trendy downtown bistro she'd dragged me to once but never booked. The caption boasted new beginnings, and I felt a pang, not of jealousy, but of clarity. This wasn't about finding herself anymore. It was about finding someone else. The next day, Jordan texted, "Caught Elena on the dock last night. She looked different." Different. I'd grown accustomed to cozy chats with strangers thanks to Lauren's tip. Now, Jordan's sighting confirmed she was tweeting her newfound freedom by the water's edge. I didn't reply. Why give her actions more weight? Still, each unsolicited update mapped her journey away from us. Then came the subtle reminders around town. At the grocery store, I saw her car parked outside, two silhouettes inside. My heart didn't race. Instead, I noted calmly, she's living her break. No anger, just the acceptance that her promises didn't align with her behavior. At the hardware store, a cashier mentioned she'd grabbed supplies for a weekend getaway. I thanked the cashier for the heads up, mentally adding another tile to the mosaic of her choices. That weekend, as I reorganized the living room again, I glanced at the blank wall where her artwork had hung. In its place, I mounted a framed photograph of myself standing on a mountain peak taken last year on my solo hike. It was a symbol. Actions speak louder than words. My photo proclaimed resilience. Her actions had proclaimed departure. My opinion on relationships shifted subtly, but radically. Words, even heartfelt apologies, mean little without consistent action. Elena's actions told a story more vivid than any explanation she might offer, a story of someone eager to test every possibility before appreciating what she already had. I realized then that true commitment isn't punctuated by passionate declarations. It's demonstrated day after day. By Friday evening, I stopped checking social media altogether. I didn't need further proof. It was laid out plainly in her footsteps. And as I closed my laptop for the weekend, I felt something unexpected: gratitude. Gratitude that her actions showed me who she really was, allowing me to reclaim my narrative. Because in the end, the proof in her actions freed me to write my own next chapter. That afternoon, I arrived at our old downtown park bench 10 minutes early, coffee in hand, heart unexpectedly steady. The fountain's gentle roar filled the silence as I watched passers-by stroll by each step, echoing a bit of the life I'd reclaimed. When Elena appeared, hair tied back, eyes wary, oversized sweater, pulled tight, I stayed seated leaning back just enough to let her approach on my terms. She paused a few feet away, searching my face for something, anything to soften what came next. I took a deliberate sip of coffee, letting the steam rise between us before setting the cup down. "Thanks for coming," she said, voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. I raised an eyebrow waiting. She launched into her explanation how lost she'd felt, how the break helped her see the truth about us, how she never meant to hurt me. But her words collided with the quiet certainty I'd built over weeks of solitude. I remembered the late-night texts, the tavern whispers, the photos of her laughter on someone else's arm, proof that her self-discovery was simply an open invitation to anyone who'd listen. So I let my silence speak first, folding my hands in my lap. When she paused, I asked calmly, "How did that truth serve you?" Her eyes flickered surprise at my directness. She stumbled over her words, tried to frame it as growth, but every excuse sounded like another way to avoid accountability. I leaned forward, locking gaze. "You claimed you needed space to figure out if we were right for each other. Instead, you used that space to test other options. That wasn't honesty, it was a game." Her face flushed, guilt washing over her features like an unwelcome wave. She opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. "I've heard enough explanations. Actions reveal character." I stood feeling the weight of finality settle in my chest. I offered respect and stability, but you chose uncertainty and distractions. She reached out, voice cracking. "But I still love you." I looked past her outstretched hand to the fountain's steady pulse and replied softly, "Love isn't claimed in words. It's proven in choices. You made yours." Without lingering, I turned and walked away, each step a reaffirmation of my worth. Behind me, I heard her catch her breath, but I didn't look back. The park's rustling leaves whispered in my ears, some confrontations aren't about reconciliation. They're about recognizing that the door you hold open for someone must be one they're willing to walk through with intention, not one they treat as a revolving exit. Enter Ryan, someone I never expected to hear from, sitting across from me at that downtown cafe, shifting nervously in his seat. He thanked me for meeting and took a deep breath. Before dropping the bombshell, "Elena told me you two were done, that you checked out emotionally. She made it sound like you pushed her away." I felt a flicker of amusement. Of course she spun the story, but I waited for him to continue. He fidgeted, eyes downcast, and confessed how he'd fallen for her honesty, only to realize the narrative didn't add up. She'd casually mention our house, our routines, stories only. I would know. Then paint me as the distant one. Ryan's voice cracked. "I thought I was the rebound. Until I heard she was telling everyone you were the one who didn't care." In that moment, the pieces snapped into place. My so-called break wasn't just about self-discovery, it was her strategy to test both of us. I listened as he admitted how guilty he felt for being part of her double life, how he'd wanted to set the record straight but didn't know if I'd believe him. I leaned back, folding my arms, and asked simply, "Why tell me now?" He exhaled, "Because I realized you weren't the villain and someone needed to know the truth." His revelation validated every boundary I'd set, every moment of strength I'd shown by walking away. I told him I appreciated his honesty. It wasn't his fault she'd played us both, but his courage reminded me why I'd held on to my dignity. As he left, offering a tentative handshake, I felt a surge of relief mixed with something unexpected compassion for the other victim in her game. That afternoon, I realized that sometimes an outsider's perspective can cut through the fog of manipulation. Ryan's revelation wasn't just gossip. It was proof that true character reveals itself in action and omission. He walked away a little lighter, and I stayed seated a little taller, grateful that the final piece of her story had landed squarely in my hands. With the truth laid bare, there was no turning back, only the open road ahead of me, free from anyone else's story but my own. That night, when her name lit up my phone for the 100th time, I felt nothing but resolve. Elena's text had shifted from sorrowful apologies. "I know I broke your heart, and I'm so sorry," to guilt-tripping pleas. "Don't you owe me closure?" And finally to desperate ultimatums. "Meet me one last time, or I'll never stop trying." I didn't respond. Instead, I walked out to my garage, picked up the cordless sander I'd used on the bookshelf that now held family photos and my favorite novels, and got to work smoothing rough edges. Later, when the doorbell rang, I opened the door to find her standing there, shoulders hunched, eyes rimmed red. She faltered on her feet, the oversized sweater she wore hanging limply as though it weighed her down. "Please, Noah," she whispered, voice cracking. "I miss us." For a moment, I saw the woman I once loved standing in broken pieces before me, and I felt the tug of old memories. But I remembered the cafe, the park, the catalog of her choices, and most of all, Ryan's revelation. She had pitted us both against each other in some twisted game of who wants me more. I held her gaze, breath steady, and said simply, I gave you every chance to choose commitment over curiosity. You chose curiosity. Her face contorted in confusion and pain as she stammered. I was scared, but I cut her off my tone, gentle yet firm. Fear doesn't give you the right to treat someone like an option. I closed the door softly, the click echoing like the final note of a symphony's last movement. In the silence that followed, I felt a calm certainty this was not an ending I needed to mourn, but a boundary I needed to honor. Elena's attempts at reconciliation would fade into voicemail trash bins and blocked numbers. And as I returned to my living room, now lit only by the glow of a single lamp, I realized that the true goodbye had come weeks ago in the quiet of my empty house, when I first realized I deserved more than her half-hearted returns. That night, I didn't just shut a door, I sealed a chapter that belonged in the past. And with that, I stepped forward into a future unwritten, carrying only the lessons I'd learned and a heart finally free to choose itself. That journey taught me that true self-worth isn't something you bargain over, it's something you claim and protect. In saying no to Elena, I said yes to myself, to my dignity, my peace, and the life I wanted to build on solid ground. The ache I felt turned into an ember of strength, reminding me that love isn't measured by how hard you hold on, but by how firmly you walk away from what diminishes you. Now, I wake up each morning in a home that reflects my choices, not someone else's doubts. I cook my own meals, fill my weekends with projects I'm passionate about, and plan adventures that feed my curiosity on my own terms. If you've ever been caught between loyalty and self-respect, remember, it takes more courage to walk away than to stay. Sometimes the hardest no is the one that sets you free. If you faced a moment when letting go felt impossible but necessary, share your story in the comments below. Let's lift each other up with real-life tales of finding strength and goodbye. And don't forget to subscribe for more journeys of resilience, unexpected turns, and the quiet power of choosing yourself.